So the reality is we have our body came from stem cells. So originally, not happy for a lot of people to think, but it's basics. Every one of us started with an ovum, an egg from mom, a sperm from dad that made a whole cell, and then it started to multiply and produce. We've got stem cells throughout the body, many of which are dormant. They get turned on at different times, make more stem cells that become dormant, and make new tissue. This is what regenerative medicine is about. How do we turn on dormant stem cells to
Yes.
make new parts of our body?
Yes. And
Very important.
know that we are capable of doing that. It doesn't have to come from outside to actually achieve repair, right? We can actually facilitate the increased supply of that as a foundation for repairing and regenerating.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Resiliency Method, the truth about healing. I'm Dr. Erica, and we are here to uncover the root causes keeping you stuck. Together, we'll restore your energy, your focus, and your resiliency so you can finally heal, regenerate, and feel truly alive again.
What if I told you that my years of grand mal seizures were actually connected to undiagnosed endometriosis on my spine? Yeah, you heard that right. Welcome to the Resiliency Method, the Truth About Healing podcast. I'm Dr. Erica, and today's episode is going to blow your mind. I'm sitting down with Dr. David Wickenheiser, a naturopathic physician with over 30 years of experience, and we're diving into endometriosis, but not the way that you've ever heard it explained before. We're challenging everything conventional medicine teaches us about this condition, exploring a revolutionary stem cell theory and uncovering why this is one of the most misdiagnosed conditions affecting women today. If you or someone you love has struggled with mysterious pain, hormonal issues, or unexplained symptoms, especially at cycle time, you need to hear this conversation. Welcome back to another episode with the Resiliency Method, the Truth About Healing podcast. I'm joined today with Dr. David Wickenheiser. He's a licensed naturopathic physician. He's on a mission to share healthcare information that will improve your life. Dr. Wickenheiser has over 30 years of clinical experience in natural and regenerative medicine, and he believes that better health comes from better choices that are made possible by better healthcare information. Hallelujah to that, David. And he shares his healthcare information on his website, Dr. Wick, Dr. That's drwik.com, and with his newsletter, The Natural Facts podcast as well, and as a guest on other healthcare podcasts, and with the Ever Patient, of course, that he works with too. He's practicing currently in British Columbia. And we're going to talk today about an interesting and kind of near and dear to my heart topic because it's something that I've actually dealt with myself. And that's endometriosis. So, David, excited to hear what you have to say on this topic. I can start just by sharing some of with the audience my personal experience with this as a patient, if you will.
Sure. Yes.
For me, it went very undiagnosed. I really never got a formal diagnosis from it, but I definitely appear to have my body dealt with it at a certain point in time.
Yeah.
And we were discussing before the recording started here, just the nature of how endometriosis can look. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that today, David, too. But sharing with the audience, this was something that was present for me, very missed in my whole healthcare picture, but also had a significant impact on my hormone regulation,
Mm.
which downstream affected how well my brain was in balance. And the audience knows that I have a history of grand mal seizures. They onset when I hit puberty. So, and then any time after I would have or complete a cycle, I always had a little bit more of a propensity to have a seizure.
Yes.
And definitely a lot of the majority of my seizures were actually around cycle time and post-cycle time in particular. And I didn't really understand why. I went on birth control one time during my life and had a breakthrough seizure. So I definitely knew that there was a correlation between what was going on with my seizure patterns and my hormones. I didn't know what the link was until years later and uncovered that I had endometrial tissue being stored on my sacrum.
Mm.
So that's the lower part of the spine. And in particular that material was interfering with the signaling to my brain. So I know you're very heavily educated and have some ideas on the correlation between those two. So I'd love to just hand over the mic to you for a moment to just kind of explain what your experience has been with endometriosis. Before I do that, I know I also want to, for the audience, this is kind of a big deal. Like people, I think a lot of people can get a diagnosis of endometriosis. I think it's more prevalent these days. My mother had endometriosis that
Mm.
admitted her to the Mayo Clinic, and they were a really hard, difficult diagnosis for her to get. She was in so much pain. She had horrible digestive issues. At one point, the material collapsed her lung. A pretty significant case. So I knew I had the propensity, but I think this is a condition. Would you agree, Dr. David, that's pretty undiagnosed in general or
In
low?
general, of course, because
Mhm.
it's cyclical by nature. With a
Uh-huh.
woman's monthly hormone cycling,
Mhm.
it comes and goes. And the number one statement in healthcare is, I thought it would just get better.
Yeah,
So a lot of people don't get full diagnoses because they just want to live their lives and they're
got it.
hoping that they get better. Of course, through a cycle, they will get a bit better,
Yes.
but the underlying problem still exists. And until it gets really bad and it's internal, and so without a lot of high quality diagnostic imaging and tracking hormones and all those other relationships in the body, and having a doctor that would even be willing to do that, because most, and we're all familiar that people want quick service.
Yeah.
So they tend to give quick answers and get them in, get them out. And having people to really dig deeper and even be trained to
Right.
for the possibility of deeper discussions. And
Wow. Yeah.
so I've got certain ideas and I've wondered about it because when we went through training, and this is years ago, I graduated in 95. And so we were doing gynecology classes in third and fourth year. And I was confused. Not that I'm off in the weeds totally, but I was confused because the dogma at the time was that, and I'm not into magical thinking. Okay. I'm very scientific, linear. There are times for magical thinking, but usually it's reading stories to a 6-year-old. But anyway,
Yes.
so
Fair.
fair. I mean, you want to do that. So, that's what Disney's based on. But what we're looking at in what we were taught was that the cells, endometrium, the lining of a woman's uterus, that those cells would somehow migrate to the lining of the abdominal cavity.
Right.
And then there in that location respond each month to the hormones being regulated through the brain and through the ovaries and different hormone centers of a woman's body. And
Right.
then it would grow and cause problems.
Yep.
Sure, maybe, but I'm questioning it because the blood supply doesn't go from the uterus to the lining of the abdominal cavity, it goes to the liver.
I am so with you on that, David.
Right.
That does never made sense to me.
No.
First of all, I operate too from the paradigm that the body is perfect in design.
Mm,
So I'm always going, if the okay, so let's say that's true.
yeah.
Why? Why would the body do something so stupid? Right? Like
Okay. Now,
what's at play that would have that scenario unleash itself inside the body? So I have never bought that. That is definitely how it was explained to my mother,
sure.
and that's how she explained it to me. I was growing up. But it's a scratch your head.
That
And
was a simple mechanistic description. We've got tissue that we know under the microscope. We've looked at, they've scraped it, took samples, look in the micro. Oh, this is endometrial tissue. Well,
Mhm.
how did it get here? Well, it magically migrates. Now, yes, the uterus in a woman is like, half an inch away from the abdominal wall. Sure. But
Sure.
stuff doesn't just move that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I thought. I have an idea, and I was taking stem cell training
Okay.
in 2012. And at the time in British Columbia, it was a gray area. So there was a number of naturopathic doctors that were doing stem cell treatments. And I wanted to get the training. And I decided ultimately not to do it. It became a black and white issue, and the answer was no.
Mhm.
But the information was really important. So my thought was with stem cell activation. So if a woman is cycling through hormonal push,
Okay.
so the areas of the brain that regulate hormones throughout the body and stem cell expression.
Okay.
So stem cells dormant throughout the body, they can express in different ways. You can
Yeah.
get a certain stem cell to express and become other tissue.
Can we stay on this for just a second? Because I
Hmm.
want this is sounds like at the basis of what your thinking is on this whole picture. So I definitely want to delve into this, but I want to pause for a second because I think a lot of times in the way that we've talked about stem cells in terms of functional medicine is that they kind of like start outside the body. And I want to just make this point, drive this point home for a lot of people because there's ways that we can actually, like you're saying, fire up, ignite, initiate, whatever word you want to use, the stem cells inside
Hmm.
our own bodies. Can you expand on your thinking on that and what you've noticed from and your experience in using stem cells too, from an exogenous or outside perspective inward and what you've noticed there?
So the reality is we have a lot of our body came from stem cells.
Mm.
So originally, not happy for a lot of people to think, but it's basics. Every one of us started with an ovum, an egg from mom, a sperm from dad that made a whole cell, and then it started to multiply and produce. And in that process, your liver came from a single cell. Now we've got stem cells throughout the body, many of which are dormant. They get turned on at different times, make more stem cells become dormant, and make new tissue. This is what regenerative medicine is about.
And
How do we turn on dormant stem cells to
yes,
make new parts of our body?
yes. And
Very important.
know that we are capable of doing that. It doesn't have to come from outside
Right.
to actually achieve repair, right? We can actually facilitate the increased supply of that as a foundation for repairing and regenerating.
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of people in our commercialized medical world believe that it won't work unless I paid somebody and got a delivery in a package.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, yes, well, that's what a large part of the economy is based on.
Mhm,
So, what we're really looking at is how do you actually turn on your own ability to regenerate? And that's
mm,
feed, clean, balance the energy.
mhm.
Are you eating enough of the right food, not too much of the wrong food? Are you getting rid of toxins? Are you balancing the energy through your thoughts, through your actions, through your emotions?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then there's acupuncture and many other parts of this.
Mhm.
But all of this is really important in terms of getting stem cells to turn on in the right place. So I had an idea that women are cycling through hormonal ranges, and there's a feedback mechanism, as we know, in the brain. So the brain is an area of the brain that is regulating hormonal balance by
Yep.
regulating how centers in the body, like your ovaries, are producing hormones.
Mhm,
And the hypothalamus is measuring what's in the blood and giving feedback.
mhm.
Now, the challenge is parts of our body, and I'll get into why and how we create it. There's areas of our body that aren't listening. The feedback loops are incomplete.
'Kay. Yep.
So the brain's trying to push a woman's ovaries, endometrium to respond throughout her monthly cycle in a normal way.
So the door is being knocked on, but nobody's answering.
But the neighbor answers.
Oh, the neighbor answers. Good.
And the neighbor is the lining of the abdominal cavity. So I'm at this stem cell course and I put it to both the woman MD, who was the clinical side, and the woman PhD candidate, who later became a PhD, top 100 stem cell experts in the world. And I put it to them and said, well, my thought is that the cells didn't migrate from the lining of the uterus.
Yeah.
They existed as stem cells in the wall of the abdominal cavity or the sacrum in your case. And the body was not responding to the push by the pituitary. The ovaries and the lining of the uterus were not responding, but the abdominal cavity did.
Interesting.
So you've got expression of a dormant stem cell to make endometrial tissue in the wrong place.
Okay.
So I put it to the doctors and I said, well, this is an idea I've got because that makes far more sense to
Okay.
me. And their reply was, well, we're not gynecologists. We don't know about that. We do regenerative work with stem cells. But what we do know is that stem cells are variably expressed by viruses.
Oh,
Now, who the heck doesn't have viruses throughout their bodies?
right.
I mean, it's not whether we have them, and it's
Mhm.
not this fallacy that I can avoid them. We
Yep.
all have them. It's a question of our underlying health as to what gets
Exactly.
flourishing and what expresses our stem cells.
I say that to my patients all the time.
Well, hello. This is
Mhm.
just rational. Now, here's the next part of this. Let's talk about looping.
'Kay.
Okay, so I took courses with Dr. Marty Hintz, Hinz, and he's into how the brain works with serotonin and dopamine.
Okay.
So serotonin balances with dopamine. Serotonin, if you don't have enough, you're at risk of anxiety, depression, poor digestion, poor sleep.
Sure.
Yes, all of us. Then, if you don't have enough dopamine, you don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
You have Parkinson's patient, they don't have enough dopamine, they're in resting tremors, and people have got restless leg syndrome. Marty hints it was his opinion that everybody's pre-Parkinsonian because we're under so much load of stress today.
Are you tired of treatments, protocols, and gurus who promise results but don't deliver? You're not alone. For years, I struggled with my own long-term illness, and I know how frustrating it feels when nothing seems to work. That's why I developed the Resiliency method. It's a science-backed approach to combining the best of Western and ancient medicines to restore your body's natural intelligence. Patient after patient has discovered what's possible, living stronger, brighter, and more spiritually connected than ever before. Whether you're facing autoimmune issues, hormonal imbalances, weight struggles, or just feeling stuck, you don't need another quick fix. You need a clear path forward. Take the first step with a discovery call at drericaonline.com/discovery. That's DRERIKA online.com/discovery. Or dive deeper with a full initial consultation at drericaonline.com/initial-consultation, because your health, your clarity, and your freedom cannot wait.
Now,
Okay.
here's the important part. Dopamine is sabotaged by sugar.
Yeah.
So when you give someone a whole bunch of sugar,
Mm-hmm.
whoever they are, even if they're self-dosing, they will sabotage their dopamine. They will loop, both
Okay.
emotionally and physically.
Okay.
Repetitive thoughts, dysregulation of hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've ever driven or seen someone drive an old truck with a loose steering box, they're kind of moving the steering wheel all over the place to try
Yep.
and stay straight.
Right.
And if they don't steer right, they're in the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
For many people without enough dopamine, because they have too much sugar in the diet, not enough good amino acids, they land up dysregulating. And it's not that it's their fault, it's their nutrition.
Yeah.
So in areas of emotions, I mean, do you know anybody who has had a failed romantic relationship who just can't stop talking about it? We all do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, I have a mirror. I'm
Yeah.
obsessive too. So it's a brain nutrition issue. B6, good amino acids, all that. But I started getting, and now there's another part here. Mucuna is a herbal product which is 40% dopamine. It works far better than just giving dopamine, which we can prescribe, but the mucuna works better to feed the brain to make more dopamine and have people come out of their loops.
Okay.
So I took my endometrial patients,
Mm-hmm.
put them on dopamine supplements along with B6, and their so they started regulating the hormones better because their feedback mechanism was working better than that steering box for the old truck, putting you off in the ditch. So in real-time regulation, their stem cell activation normalized.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's part of regeneration. It's not just can
Mm.
you regenerate something, it's can you regenerate what you want when you want it.
Want to regenerate. Yeah. That makes sense. Talk to me about the great connector of the brain and the gut, which is the vagus nerve, and how you might think that plays into this scenario.
Okay, let's talk about the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about some funky stuff because I'm looking at your neck too. Okay, so the vagus nerve is a cranial nerve, meaning it comes out of the skull way up top. Now, it innervates the middle ear, the heart, the diaphragm for breathing, the stomach, and the liver, and everything in between. Why does someone, when they eat dry crackers, hiccup? The vagus nerve. Now, it's called the vagus nerve because it's a vagabond. It's all over the place. So the
Hmm.
vagus nerve is irritated in the stomach of the dry crackers,
Hmm.
and so it starts spasming the diaphragm. You start hiccuping. Now, what is the biggest problem with the vagus nerve is that if we have a big trauma, we will pinch it in the neck and it'll affect everything. Now, you look in the mirror, people with lateral lines, they will have nerve pinches in the back because they've had some trauma at some time. And I can see it because it affects the skin.
Mm,
And
mhm,
some people have got smooth skin, other people have got complex lateral lines. And
mhm,
I can tell now, I have an ultrasound machine diagnostic. So I'll look at their neck tissue and I can see where it's torn.
mhm.
And that's part of what we do with prolo therapy, proliferating connective tissue to hold their neck in place.
Yeah. Well, the
So,
vagus nerve is a weak link for me in
in
particular.
what way?
Something, well, big surprise, grand mal
Mm,
seizures history, right? We know that in the most, I never had to do this, but some of the worst seizure cases, the way that we're managing some of those now
yeah.
is by putting in devices inside of the chest, the thoracic cavity to actually help stimulate the vagus nerve. So
Okay.
part of my process of getting my neurological, my brain fixed essentially is in fixing my vagus nerve. So right now in particular, it's very much under construction doing some vagus nerve stimulation. But what you're saying to me right now, it sounds like you're kind of diagnosing or assessing me. So go ahead and expand on that a little bit further on
Okay.
what
So,
in my neck and the lateral lines.
so I suspect that you've had some fall, some trauma, and you're pinching your nerve at the back. Now, what I've learned from
Left side or
orthopedics,
right side?
both.
Okay.
It's more pronounced on your right side, though.
Yeah, let's pick up with the lateral lines.
Okay, so in your spine, you have nerve roots, bundles of nerve coming out of the spine and then going to the tree of your body.
Uh-huh.
Those nerves, along with all the nerves throughout the body, are subject to irritation.
Okay.
So through trauma, through infection,
Yep.
something, you'll get swelling. Now, why is there lateral lines? Within each bundle, there's three bundles.
Okay.
One bundle, and that's each level of the spine. One goes to internal organs, one goes to the skeletal muscles, and one goes to the skin. Irritate one, the other two go.
Okay.
Now, understand that nerves, now I was taught this by Dr. Thomas Clark of MSK US, so musculoskeletal ultrasound trainer. And he's teaching, that irritated nerves, exquisitely irritated, will swell as much as 3 times normal diameter. So, if you remember your anatomy, nerves are a certain size, they're going through bony areas and all the rest. When they swell that much, they'll pinch themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've got torn connective tissue in the back of your neck, that doesn't give full support. So the muscles try to adapt
Mm-hmm.
and they will pinch nerves. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you've got pinched nerves in a certain area, you will not get full transmission up or down.
Yeah.
So your brain is going into dysregulatory states
Yep.
because there's a pinch somewhere. Now, it's wonderful that you're getting stimulation down below, but you absolutely have to look at compression patterns in your neck.
Well, definitely. Well, so I'm also the daughter of three of a chiropractor. So I have chiropractically adjusted since I was 4 years old. And definitely after post seizure, I would have, Atlas and X.
Everything out. Yeah.
Yeah, completely out. But what we've seen, and actually the pattern you're describing there with the compression, nerve compression is real because I've seen this not only in myself, but other patients that I have that are having vagus nerve, issues.
Yeah.
And, mine was really on the right side, more that compression pattern.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking this morning how, oh my gosh, I haven't felt that pain in so long because of what we're doing with the vagus nerve and trying to rebuild it with using, amplification of stem cells
Yes.
inside the body and dealing with that. But it's a process. And definitely in the healing process, you have an inflammatory state at different times as well.
Yes.
So I always say, sometimes we tend to look solely at inflammation as just this bad thing that is, if it's going to cause you symptoms, et cetera, et cetera. What I've seen clinically is that inflammation is how the body heals. But the caveat and the difference is inflammation that is a controlled burn is useful for you. Inflammation that is a raging out of control forest fire is going to present you with, debilitating symptoms and nuances in your or nuisances in your life. So definitely, I always say that, swelling isn't necessarily bad. Seeing some of those deviations in tissue actually can be a sign of progress, and especially if it's coordinated well.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about inflammation for a second. Inflammation is a symptom pattern that is pain, redness, heat, and swelling, any
Right.
or all of that.
Yeah.
That is the outward,
That heat pattern in Chinese medicine. Yeah.
yes. So that is the outward symptom pattern that tells us that cytokines, the chemicals of healing, are in play.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you injure tissue, you'll release cytokines. Now, it's injury through trauma or infection, but
Mm-hmm.
cytokines come out. There's about 8 steps to get them to turn on the cells that lay down more tissue and heal connective tissue.
Okay.
They often get hung up at 3, 4. And so
Okay.
there's a backlog. Now, one of the therapies that I use is ozone therapy, which is energized oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
So I inject it into tissues that are inflamed.
Okay.
It activates inflammation, which is a good thing. You cannot heal without inflammation.
You can't. Well, it's the mechanism, right?
It's the process. Now,
Mm.
if it's out of control, like you said, a control burn has to be productive. So you energize it, it goes through. Now, there's other ways of doing it as well. So ozone, I love. They're getting into more ozonated instead of ozone gas. They're getting into ozonated glycerin, which is really cool.
Oh, interesting.
Oh yeah, that I was at a training last March 2025, and it was highlighting the use of ozonated glycerin
Okay.
creates ozonides that modulate the cytokines.
Okay. So
So
kind of controlling the burn,
yes,
modulation.
balancing the natural process.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
And so instead of jamming it or I don't want to criticize anybody, but there are a number of doctors who really like anti-inflammatories. Instead
Yeah.
of controlling inflammation, they want to turn it off.
Let's turn it
Now,
off. The steroids. Yeah.
well, many choices there. And so you get rid of the pain. Now you have a falsely supported patient who thinks they're fine. They didn't go to finish that 8-step process. They went back to the start without realizing it. And now that's why many doctors who use steroids,
Mm-hmm.
cortisone injections and all that, they only do one. They don't want to do 2 or 3 because they know the person's stuck in a loop of not healing.
Yeah.
We don't want to be in loops.
Let's talk about those steps. Will you go through each of those steps, and then where you think the reasons why you think steps 3 and 4 are tending to break down for most people?
Okay. So how do we get that natural process to actually work? Well, first off, you've got to supply nutrients. And so is the person eating good foods? Are they digesting it? If they're not digesting it, digestive aids. Are they eating foods that bug them? Stop it. But a lot of that is because of underlying infections. So we may have to use antiparasitic formulas to keep them balanced.
Yep.
Then from there, do they get fed? Well, I really like the topic. Well, MSM is really important, methyl sulfonamethyl. It's a white powder nutritionally in a lot of joint formulas that nutritionally supports the growth of new tissue,
Mhm.
connective tissue. But I really like the topical formulas of DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide. Now it gives you garlic breath and it smells harsh if you don't have enough green in your diet. There's ways of managing it, but nobody cares because it feels better and
Mhm.
it actually feeds. So if you put on your neck, it will actually feed the tissue to regrow because a lot of it didn't grow because at the time of injury, it got swollen and the circulation wouldn't bring enough nutrition there. So you form scar tissue. So to get rid of scar tissue, they're even using it in eye formulas for eye drops. Now, 10% solution, but still, DMSO is really a popular product for me with my patients because it helps to calm down irritated nerves, get connective tissue to regenerate. So
Okay.
that's really important. Now, the next part of all this is energy.
Yes.
Now we get into some
Mitochondrial.
funky stuff because you're into acupuncture.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was I won't have all the details, but there was close to 25 years ago, there was a medical doctor in Korea
Okay.
who actually photographed acupuncture channels.
Oh, yeah.
So
Mhm.
in acupuncture, we've got all these fancy charts with meridians going through odd things, through bones, through organs, all, and nobody could see it because it,
It's
as
electrical.
it turned out they were doing cadavers, not living people.
Mhm. Mhm.
So this particular medical doctor took pictures. Emotionally, or politically, he had a side opinion to the dictator of North Korea. Apparently, he disappeared.
Oh.
We don't know what happened to him, but he had written 6 books, really 3 books twice released, and talking about these channels that he had photographed. Now, the tragedy of all this was that he was taking photographs of dissected living people. But so,
Oh.
yeah, exactly. Ooh, not happy about that, but happy about the concept So these actual meridians are actual open channels
Uh-huh.
that transport stem cells and energy.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes, well, you
And
don't practice, right?
let's try to drill down on energy even further.
Hmm.
Electrical energy?
Okay, it's electrically measured, but it's
Yeah.
not just electrical. So in Chinese medicine, there's four
Yeah.
fluids.
Yep.
There's blood, sweat, and tears. There's qi, jing, and shen. Qi is the energy that moves through your meridians.
Hmm.
Jing is what resides your life essence in your kidneys, and Shen is your spirit.
Yes.
Now, we don't know exactly what Qi is. We can measure it electrically, we know the effect, and a lot of people that I've studied under, practitioners, when I, same thing as you, I want to know more details.
Hmm.
Is it at a quantum level? What is it? And they kind of look at me funny, they always have, and they say, why would you care? We do this, they get better.
Right. Right.
Right. We're just practical. I just got 5 more people that need my care. I don't care if it's quantum, it works.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I still ask questions.
Yeah. Very practical.
Well,
Yeah, and that's very valid. And I always like to point out to people too that because I think sometimes where we get a little twisted around in terms of Chinese medicine, talking about meridians and channels and such, is that people think that you have to like adopt a whole new paradigm or way of thinking of the body to like make it make sense. And it's not really so. It's just like you mentioned, the Chinese, ancient Chinese, Eastern cultures were really good with human dissection and really good at just like documenting and mapping out how everything was connected to everything else. So that's ultimately what we're dealing with
yes,
is the study and the then practical application of a therapy based on that knowledge, that information, and leveraging again the innate intelligence that's there to heal
exactly.
and coordinating the effort of the healing process. Right.
So let me give you another angle on this.
Hmm.
That's really cool because it gets good results. You're trained in acupuncture. Do you do much moxibustion?
I don't. You want to know my theories on that? But go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
You finish.
Okay.
I'm
So
interviewing.
moxibustion is really funky
Yes.
because it puts energy. So there's a particular herb called mugwort
Yep.
that when you put it into what looks like a cigar, light it on fire, it burns, it smolders with an ember that supposedly, I think it's true, but supposedly it vibrates at a certain harmonic when it burns. Now, you hold that over acupuncture points, and supposedly it's a third of Chinese medicine, is not just moving energy through the meridians, but actually putting more energy in.
Yes. Good.
So the problem with all that is I'm not really a smoke person. I don't agree with smoke and recreational substances or, forest fire. I don't like smoke. And yet to do moxibustion and not burn the person, you've got to get it right down, like just over the meridian point and put the energy in. And there's plumes of white smoke and it kind of smells like pot. So I'm just not going there. I'm certainly not doing it in my office. My landlord will ask me to leave. So I love the idea. I'm not going to do it until I got a Premio 10 unit,
Okay.
which is an electrical moxibustion stick.
Okay.
So it's got an element that puts out energy,
Yeah.
no smoke. So
And
I can hold,
heat in
yes,
particular.
heat and harmonic.
Nice.
So I'm using it on abdominal points for women and getting prolapsed uteri to draw back up into their bodies.
Nice.
I'm turning on core energy and people are more energetic because they have more energy to move through their meridians.
Yes.
So what's your theory on all this?
Well, I think we see less use of it probably because also our patient populations are so toxic and inundated with a lot of pathogens
Oh,
that there's already self-generation of heat happening on the regular inside their body. Now, if you bring that heat and that inflammation down, then you have an opportunity to clear, we call that clearing excess, right?
yes,
Clearing the excess pattern. And then you have an opportunity for a bit of time to tonify. And then you'll tonify, and the body, because it's perfect in design, will then want to go in to a deeper level of healing. And so oftentimes what it will do is start the excess pattern again. It'll create that modulated inflammatory state to heal the next bit of whatever needs to be healed kind of thing. And
Yes.
so now you're back into the heat scenario. So I think that's also that plays out into a lot of my patients are like, "Can I do sauna therapy?" And I'm like, "Not right now,"
Not yet.
because you're already generating a lot of internal heat
Yes.
because of unchecked inflammation and undealt with root causes of that inflammation. But once we quell that, get that under control, then we'll bring in those more what we would call that a tonifying or building therapy, which we can see that looks like increasing mitochondrial function, just
Yeah.
helping the body to do that repairing and regenerating piece of it.
Very cool. Now, a big part of Chinese medicine, as you know, is stagnation, which is
Right.
congestion and lack of flow
Right.
and irritation. So when we're irritated, we make things like mucus,
Hmm.
so-called biofilms,
Yes.
where bacteria hide and hang
Mhm.
out. And
Yep.
so to get all that, what I like to say is before you sweep the garage, open the door so the cloud of dust leaves.
Love
So you
it.
got to open up the emunctories, make sure that you're eliminating, and then tonify for sure. Now here, let me give you one. I believe, one of my sayings, I believe that all illness is based on a pronunciation error,
Fair. Go
the
ahead. Keep going.
inability,
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on the
okay?
medical language here.
So the inability to say no,
Okay.
right? Boundaries and expectations. If you
Yeah.
get pulled into an unsafe, reciprocal adult relationship where you're just being abused, that's not good. Now, that relationship could be with food
Hmm.
that's stagnating your body. It could be underlying infections that are allowed to flourish because of the wrong thoughts and energy flow. There's so
Hmm.
many interrelationships here
Yeah.
that when we get down to the core, people are not surprised. They're kind of shocked, but they thought that they could just put up with it.
Yeah.
And when the it becomes 10 different things, it's like, I don't know why you're putting up with any of it.
Hmm.
It takes two to be friends. If you can't eat wheat, it's not your friend. I don't care if you like it. Maybe the
Yeah.
bacteria in your gut love it, but you don't. Why
Right.
are you eating? Now I don't. Now, I'm not saying all wheat. I'm because a lot of my patients go back to Europe for holidays or for trips, and they eat everything wrong there. But there's no GMO, and it's locally produced, and they're eating wheat that agrees with them.
Yeah.
Now, is that because the wheat's different or their bacterial balance is different? There's different considerations for each person. But the
Hmm.
bottom line is we all have the ability to be better if we control our infections, control our emotional states.
Yeah.
There's even a discussion that many of our choices and emotional states are based upon the neurotransmitter hormone like substances being put out by bacteria in our intestinal tract. So if
I
you eat
agree.
garbage food, you'll make certain realities happen
Hmm.
biochemically in your body that makes your brain go.
Yeah. What I've seen too is there's that, we're talking about that phlegm piece, right? And so
Mm,
I've seen where that actually is withholding a lot of, it could be parasite eggs, it could be
mhm.
bacteria, fungus, Lyme bacteria,
Yeah,
things like that that are hanging out in that material. And for lack of better, description, I don't necessarily think this lines up like my definition of mycoplasma would be more of that nature,
yes,
whereas look up at the theoretical, definition of mycoplasma, it's just bacteria because it's designed or probably viewed in the light of more of a biomedical system, which is really focused and over-tented on antibiotic therapy, right?
right.
So I think that's a piece of it, but that piece, that material, when is properly moved, we've seen clinically will actually reverse the food sensitivities with a little
Exactly.
bit of assistance of stem cell initiation and improvement will do nicely to heal the gut. And then all of a sudden the food sensitivities are reversing. And I
Right.
had a anaphylactic gluten sensitivity at one point served a bun in a restaurant and literally had to take my friend across the park and say, "Here, can you tap on my back? I'm thinking we might need to go to the hospital." It was so bad, David, that eventually I was like, "What is going on here? My immune
Mm,
system, my nervous system are reacting this strongly to what is supposed to be." And we can debate all day about how toxic, certainly the wheat in the US is. And I wouldn't say that's a debate, that's an agreement.
right.
But
But
that's
not universally. Not everybody's affected.
Yes, exactly, and why is not everybody affected universally on that? I've seen where I think it's more and you might know more about this too based on which genes are at play here, but I think that what I've seen clinically is there's certain genetic profile that has us not being able to detox glyphosate specifically. Once I go in and
Mm,
take the glyphosate burden down too on those real sensitive food sensitivity people, that
yes,
also helps reverse the food sensitivities too. So I don't know. There must be some kind of component, I think, genetically that's either studied or not studied yet that is correlating to that too because of, yeah, your
always.
point. Yeah.
So there's another part to this. We talked about earlier cytokines being chemicals of healing. So
Mhm.
there are certain within that group, there are chemicals, thymus regulator cells. So the
Okay.
thymus is regulating the immune system,
Mhm.
puts out B cells and T cells. B cells tune the white blood cells to what to attack. So that's the B cells, the T cells. Helper cells rev up your white blood cells, and T regulators bring it down. So those are to be modulated in different ways.
Yeah.
But there's also what's known as Th1 and Th2. So that
Mhm.
have you ever wondered? I wondered until I learned how can shingles, chickenpox virus, hide in a cell? Why don't our white blood cells just eat them?
Right.
Why? Well, because that Th1 is cellular immunity. It downregulates cellular immunity. And as a direct consequence, you bring down Th1, Th2 goes higher.
Okay. Yeah.
Th2 is I've got a rash, I can't eat wheat, I've got foggy thinking. All these outward symptoms are an
Mm,
indicator that the
mhm.
Th1, Th2 balance is not. Now,
Ah,
this is where I get into things. Now, I don't really want to go with pharmaceuticals. Hey, if they work, we use it. So
yeah.
there is something called naltrexone. Have you
Yes.
used that very much? Yes, it
I don't,
upreg. Go
yeah.
ahead.
I don't need so what we're doing in our process in the resiliency method is actually identifying what is dysregulating the thymus gland in particular, giving it
Mhm.
whole food protomorphogen to help repair it. And so we've seen great success with actually taking that angle en route for the thymus gland. Thank you for bringing up the thymus gland. It is such an underplayed and misunderstood
Yep.
deal here. Can we talk about the thymus gland for a second? Because I
Okay.
get super passionate about this.
So
Because we were told that that's supposed to shrivel up and just be nonchalant. Who cares? We don't need a long term immunity.
we
What?
don't care about it. We don't understand it. So ignore it.
Hmm.
That's in the same vein of thinking, which is totally misdirected, that if you're a woman and you're over 50 years of age, you're not going to have children. Just take your uterus out. Who cares?
Right.
What?
Right.
No. So your thymus gland, really important, but also, so there's different areas like even your thyroid for energy. It's highly susceptible, autoimmune, to certain Yersinia bacteria. It'll have a cross reactivity to. There's different. Now, why do people, the thymus gland, no different? It's part of your immune system, but it's susceptible to certain bacterial infections when it's not fed well.
Hmm.
And it's very important for self image. So, now, does a poor thymus gland give you poor self image, or does a poor self image affect your thymus gland? The answer is yes.
Uh-huh.
Work it from both ends. Feeding it, getting it to balance out the immune system throughout your body to make enough thymus regulators. Now, we use homeopathic remedies. I was taught a low dose immunotherapy through the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. So they're
Hmm.
looking at all the allergies being underlying infections. So you got to handle the infection, but you also have to rebalance the energy patterns. And you can't do that if the person's not ready. If, like you said, they're too stagnant, they're backed up, they're not well fed, their emotions are sideways, getting all that taken care of, which is a process. And what about a person's why? Why are they doing anything? So dealing with their why, giving them meaning in life, that's community, that's connection, that's other people. Get their why. Why do they even want to be alive? Well,
Yeah.
because it can be fun. Come on, get back to it.
Right.
Right. And then they can get rid of all the rest. So is stagnation, infection, poor digestion, are all these symptoms of a person who's not really involved with their life? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I like how you bring in into your whole purview too here, David, how you're talking about the emotional aspects and how they show up and play. Because I think also a lot of times we're being taught or we're kind of being, told in our society and our culture that emotional experiences are happening to us. And I love that you're looking at it from more of a biomedical standpoint. And I look the same way too. I think
Mhm.
a brain, a nervous system that is balanced and is adaptable to its environment not only shows up as being, more resilient to its food and its
Uh-huh.
diet and such, but it also has increased adaptability to emotional experiences, which come as a part of being a human on
Yes.
this planet, walking in this body. And rather than always seeing emotional experiences as being something that are, like I said, kind of brought onto us, how some of the physiological imbalances in the body can sometimes contribute to your ability to process emotions. And in particular, if you know anything about this, this is one that I was been putting together recently clinically, is the vagus nerve, coming back to the vagus nerve and the
Uh-huh.
ability to let go effectively, and seeing how that has an impact too. Like you mentioned too, like, some of our biggest heartbreaks and intimate relationships, kind of intimate partnerships and such,
Yes.
and how sometimes some of those physiological imbalances can actually have an impact on your ability to process the ending of a relationship or
Yes.
whatnot. So I'd love to hear some thoughts on some of the ones you see clinically and what you know about that aspect.
Well, people are looping too often. They're eating way too many processed sugars because it's joyful at a level. And I heard this yesterday with a patient. Says, "Well, I love," and she's being realistic. She says, "I love my addictions, a particular type of coffee." And she says, "It's confusing because I have a whole bunch of joy, but I don't feel happy." Well, the joy is a certain chemical release, and the not happy is that, and as an overview, as a person that it's not going to go in the right place. You're going to be in a loop and you're going to have to repeat that coffee every 2 hours because you're getting such a boost, or your bacteria in your gut are getting such a boost. So
Interesting. Yeah.
to look at nutrition and tough it through good nutrition, first week and a half, 2 weeks, get the gut bacteria to alter. That's huge. And then looking at stagnation. What is stagnation? Well, it's a response to irritation. So
Yeah.
you're
It's
making
close
mucus to
drainage
buffer yourself.
pathways. Yeah.
Yes.
Liver that's not draining well,
Yep.
detoxing well, kidneys that aren't clear and flushed enough to eliminate bowels that are stodgy. And yeah, those are definitely also pieces of that stagnation. But then, yeah, actual emotional
Yes.
stress and such will, from a Chinese medicine, will perspective, will stagnate, like you said,
Yeah.
the qi and energy. And
And
that
then you
definitely
get
affects
stuck.
emotional processing too.
And some people actually like to self-medicate with memories.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So they like a certain
More
memory.
pleasurable periods of time. Yeah,
And a
absolutely.
lot of that's projection. It's not even reality.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of living their life, moving ahead, making relationships, interacting with people,
Yeah.
which we can't, and that's social media.
Yeah.
People have reduced interaction, which they need. We all need social interaction. They reduce it down to a couple of words in text. And if they don't get the cue back to them, their world is destroyed. Now, that's expected with a 12-year-old, but how many of us are older than that, but not?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
And then
marketers
in
know this.
in that developmental level,
Yes.
engaging in those types of, yeah,
And so,
wow.
you've got a bunch of, it's well known that there's 12-year-olds that think that they're 30, and
Mm,
there's 50-year-olds who think they're 12.
yeah.
And so getting a balance there and not looping back, getting fed, getting rid of some of their held emotions that are only causing more phlegm in their body and their brain. Because
Yes.
brain phlegm is a really interesting thing.
Yes. Can we talk about that for a second? Oh, I could talk to you all day about this stuff. I think love that we're kind of doing a smorgasbord here. We started with endometriosis.
Well, it's all regulation. It's
Yeah.
all about feeding your body so that it's got enough building blocks to move ahead, enough energy. Then detox, which means get rid of what isn't. Now, what's a toxin? The toxin is any substance or even a thought pattern that limits or blocks normal activity in your body. Detoxification is processing and elimination of
Mhm.
those chemicals or even thoughts.
Yep.
This is life. This is normal. But most
Mhm.
people are avoiding it because, again, they're not saying no. So a lot of people I talk to say that they're confused, and I don't believe them. And I put them on the spot and say, no, you're not confused. You know exactly what you need to do and what your body needs. Your confusion's coming in is that you don't want to disturb another person by going against their wishes.
Yes. Right.
Every one of us is the average of our 5 closest associations.
Mhm.
And if
Yeah.
there wasn't, we'd leave that association or we would get different friends.
Yeah. Yep.
So
And
we're
the
stuck in
concern
our
of
loops
not being accepted or belonging to the group, that's
to fit
significant.
in. So
Yep.
they'll smoke, they'll drink, they'll consume recreational substances to fit in, even though they know it's destroying their body. So actually figuring out their why.
Mhm.
Why are they alive? What will fulfill them? And that why, if you clear on that, that's goal setting, that's all those things.
Yeah.
Then you'll be committed enough to eat the right foods, to have the right activity, to do all the stuff that you know you should do. No, there's no surprise. When I have patients come in, maybe there's some details that they've never heard before, but they know the basics. They're not living right. We've got to change all that. Now they have a decision to move ahead, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'll tell them, don't eat this food, don't engage in this activity, move ahead. Are they actually going to do it? Well, that's their decision. I'll help them. I can't force them to do it. It's not my
Mhm.
purpose. But if they really are committed to doing, and some are, and some don't want to, they'd rather die their way. I have to respect. I don't agree with it, but I'll have to respect it.
Yeah. Yeah. But what would be the one thing, David, that you think, Dr. David, that would the better question that a patient could ask themselves or a provider that would essentially give them more power back in their world of health? What would you say?
The most important thing that they can know is what's possible. They have to know what's happened with other people just like them. We need to know what's even possible because there's a sequence of thoughts that everyone goes through. They want to know, is their health condition knowable? This is what I'm experiencing. Have you heard of this or seen this before? So they're talking to a healthcare professional. So they have to know a clear thought of what they're experiencing that's not serving them. Then they need to know if it can be solved anywhere. Yes, I understand what you're going through. This is the dysfunction. We need to deal with this problem. They need to know, is there a solution in the world? Is there a solution near where they live or where they're connected on the internet? And will it actually work for them? So they need to know their possibilities. And that's what podcasts are all about. What are the possibilities? Now, it's not just pie in the sky, here's some theory. No, this is what I've actually thought, and this is how I've applied it to people, and these are the results I'm getting. Now, it may be different for you, mileage may vary, they all say, but it's what is even possible, and then they can aspire to having good health. Now,
I
here I'm
love
going to give
that.
you the next part. I threaten people. Now, I know I'm a strong beta. I'm not an alpha aggressive person, but still, how long are you going to live? You need to figure out your life expectancy because now I know that's God, that's all spirituality, all that stuff. It's your destiny because we all know people that stepped off a curb, tripped, and died. What the heck? How'd that happen? Other people I know literally got run over by a truck and did not die. It wasn't their time. Now, we all are going to live as long as we're going to live. That's our destiny. The question is, are we going to do it right? And that's my threat. By
Mhm.
taking charge of your health now, by figuring out what can be done and taking charge of your life, and maybe not doing everything tomorrow, but starting to move there. Know your possibilities, map it out, set your goals, start eating right, start, integrate slowly if you have to. Be a big project person if you really must, but really it's
Yeah.
time. And we talk about detoxification. 2 weeks of diarrhea taking heavy herbs is not detoxification. It's drinking enough water, eating enough fiber, getting enough exercise, all those natural things. That's detoxification. So what we really need to have people know is what's possible, get them attached to it, and not be disabled for the end of their life. We don't want to spend 20
Yeah.
years disabled. We want to be independent,
Right.
active, and moving ahead.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, we need that overhaul so badly.
Mhm.
I talk to patients about that all the time. I'm like, you got to look around right
Yeah.
now and see what you're witnessing in terms of how people are living the last
Yeah.
part of their life.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to make a clear decision if you're on board with that. And if you're
Yes.
not, you need to start taking action now.
Because no decision is still a decision. By
Right.
delaying, you're delaying the inevitable. It's not changing the world. It's not changing your experience. It's just changing your perception, which
Right.
is not enough of a reality check. I'll just ignore it until it matters. Yeah, but it may matter for the last 20 years of your life.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. We got to get people off of being oriented to here and now and how they're doing day to day and really take a step back and come up with a strategy for how
And
they're.
be realistic. I mean, Nobody's surprised when I tell them they have to take natural medical steps. Drugs and surgery have their place. They're fantastic,
Yeah.
but not for everything.
Right. Right.
And when people go back to their medical doctor and say, I'm on 10 different drugs, what can I get off of? What can I do? How come they're not doing everything that was promised? And the common response is, well, what did you expect?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
expected the ads to be my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that really was just an ad. You need to
Right.
take charge, look around, look at your family. What didn't work for your genetics?
Right. Exactly. And also, yeah, it's great research is in examining the family history and what's happening.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I always tell my patients too, you have to also consider that if mom or dad started showing dementia, issues with their brain, like such as dementia, memory loss in their 70s,
Hmm.
account for the fact that you're probably going to start to show those symptoms perhaps a decade earlier.
In a modern world, yes.
Because every generation seems to advance an earlier expression of those symptoms that we're seeing that are lined up on a genetic level. And to think that just because mom or dad had that, I think we're getting past this now, but to think just because mom or dad had that, you're just basically, well, that's just your path. That's the way it's going to be,
Hmm.
is horribly disempowering and is definitely, paralyzing. So don't get attached to those types of things when
Well,
you
that's defeatism. Expect
defeatism,
more and
absolutely.
move towards it.
Yeah. Well, gosh, David, we've covered a lot of ground here today. Thank you so much. This has been incredible to just get so many topics covered. I love the discussion today. I'm wanting to have you back on this podcast too, because I can tell we could probably go on for hours.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'd love to have you just to give the audience one more recap of where they can find you.
Okay, so podcasts, the Natural Facts podcast. So wherever you get your podcast, I'm working on my website. So that'll be naturalfacts.com. I'll have lots of different pieces of information up there that people can go download audio, video, text. There's all kinds of reports there. So it's been a real pleasure because I've got a kindred spirit. And
Yeah.
it's not just the information, because that'll change next week. It's the openness to consider information and make sense of it. Don't just give up. It's a mystery.
Yes.
Sure, today, but maybe tomorrow, new information comes out of a new study and it all makes sense. A new
Yes.
discussion, a new conversation.
Absolutely.
So be
The
open to
only
possibilities.
Love it. The only way to really improve health outcomes is to just continuously be in inquiry.
Yes.
And that's how we advance this for the whole common good, which is really we're driven by.
Cool. Thank
All
you,
right.
Dr. Erica.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Resiliency Method, the Truth About Healing podcast. If this episode spoke to you, follow, share, and leave us a review. Are you ready to go deeper? Book your discovery call now at drericaonline.com/discovery and take your first step today.